All right, let's get a check on what's happening there. We're going to, first of all, discuss some things happening right there in the crypto industry. We've seen the market has shed about $130 billion in 24 hours. That's talking about, trading the market there. We did see the market not really react to that the first time we got that news about the court in the U.S. stepping in when it comes to the tariffs in the U.S., telling the president you cannot decide those tariffs alone. And we saw the markets react. I was positive for U.S. stocks, China stocks, but Bitcoin didn't really react much there. But we're going to be discussing regulation, at this point, what to expect, for the African continent. And we see digital currencies across Africa. They're getting a lot of attention right now. But there's also that issue about taxing crypto. There's also that issue about regulation. Where are we on the African continent? To help us unpack that now, we have Sebastian Odem as the tax director at Yellow Card joining me right here in the studio. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Ladi. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Pleasure to be here.
So much happening. I remember 2016, 2017. It was wild, wild west. There was really not more conversations about, who's regulating crypto, who's going to tax crypto. It was all about trades and people making 1,000% profit, 5,000% profit, making life-changing money. But things have changed. Fast forward to now, and we're seeing regulation across Africa. In Nigeria, we're seeing it's regulated by the SEC. They have rules now. There's CBN guidelines there. There's VASPs. There's also that 7.5% VAT on crypto transactions. Capital gains tax, that's also right there in the conversation. South Africa, crypto assets are classified as financial products under the FASE Act. Then the Kenya, we have virtual asset service provider bill introduced in, I think, early 2025 or so. Proposed 3% tax on crypto and NFT transfers. That's for Kenya.
Yes.
So much is happening in that space. How are you seeing it?
I think the first part is why the attention.
Right.
And there's been growing adoption of cryptocurrency in Africa. And Nigeria happened to be at the center of it. But the question has always been, how do you navigate through those stuff? Because people say, oh, people make money about that. And for you to tax, you need to understand what you are taxing. And I always tell people that one of the tenets of taxation is clarity of the tax rules. And so we see a whole lot of stuff like Kenya, everybody trying to understand, which is where Yellow Card is trying to collaborate with regulators to make sure, one, they understand the impacts. Two, they understand what are you supposed to tax. Because we've seen a situation, for example, in Kenya, where they introduced a tax that they could not able to generate anything from it, because the tax they introduced was actually higher than the turnover that people are making as well.
Wow.
And which was just lack of understanding of what exactly the business and the value chain and their.
So as a government, you would think you're taxing an asset class like,
Yes.
Maybe Bitcoin or whatever, but you're taxing the air.
Exactly.
Because I'm like, how do you navigate this? Really?
Yes. So I think the interesting thing, I just told someone yesterday that it's easier for you to learn how to drive by reading, but you will never know how to drive until you enter a car and realize that, yes, they said match the middle one for brake, but sometimes you need to learn how to match it slowly and not so fast. And so one of the things we are seeing is understanding the value chains in the crypto market business, digital assets, then helps you to understand how you tax it. When people talk about cryptocurrency, everybody believes, oh, Bitcoin, that's one that is the most popular one. But there's also the advent of stable coins. And stable coins, the only difference that from the word stable, they are just pegged to something very stable, USD, gold, and so collateralized asset. And so those ones, people just hold those ones for payment, not for investment. So your ability to decide what exactly is an asset, what exactly is a payment for service, helps you to determine what exactly am I taxing. And I always say the truth is, if the tax rules are not clear, it will force not evasion, but because people don't understand it, they will just tend to avoid it. And one of the issues, for example, using the East African market where they've tried to introduce that, is that they realized that they never collected anything because people were like, I don't even know what I'm going to collect. So if I purchase a Bitcoin for, let's say, for example, 1,000, and I sold it for 1,100, why do you want to collect 3% on 1,100 instead of 100?
So it's on 100.
It's supposed to be on 100.
On the gain.
On the gain.
Right.
Not on 1,100. And also remember the volatile nature of the cryptocurrency. So that means tomorrow, like between Thursday and Friday, there was a dip, a slight dip. So if, for example, I bought on Thursday and then circumstances forced me to sell on Friday.
Maybe a tariff announcement.
Exactly, a tariff announcement like US, whether Trump is going to what the court is saying, and then you realize that, oh, somebody wants to collect 3%. Then what has happened is that you are taxing the asset. That's a depletion of the asset value.
So we're taxing a loss.
Exactly. And then you can, so when you look at that, because of this lack of clarity, people are like, I don't even need to disclose this. But one of the things we are pushing in Yellow Card is that collaborative nature, that we're willing to work with the regulators, with the taxmen, to walk them through the value chain. How do you ensure that, one, you do not stifle innovation in that area, and two, there is also expansion of the tax net in terms of raising revenue as well. So we played a lot of that interesting thing in Kenya. We've been making submission from the Treasury and then to the Parliament. I just recently returned from Kenya, where we make a submission. What's the best way to tax this? One, because you need to be able to promote people that are growing. Two, you want people to be able to voluntarily disclose. And three, you want to make sure that the cost of collection is not high. You know, for example, if I'm going to collect...
But since it's digital currency, the cost of collection, you would think would be, cheap somehow. But I guess, is that the case?
No, if you don't understand it, you'll be chasing shadows. That's the problem. And one of the things also why we're pushing for the regulation is that we feel also regulation brings a sort of investor confidence and consumer protection. Because, for example, people now say, oh, cryptocurrency, is it a legal thing or is it illegal or whatever? But by the time you bring proper regulation, and then people are advising you, this is the way it works, this is where the platform works, this is the revenue tax point, so you're able to know. If not, you can set up large mechanism or large machinery, which would have cost you money to collect the tax, and at the end, you realize you're not collecting anything because you have lack of understanding how it works. Which is why at Yellow Card, we are so positive that if we can collaborate and work together. For example, we're working with most of the Rwandan government, Kenyan government, trying to give a workshop and capacity building to understand the different processes involved in the digital asset currency. There are different types. And if you don't define the taxes properly, then you end up losing out. And one of the things you want to avoid is having black market on those things. And that's why you have fraud cases happening and then scams, because there's lack of regulation as well.
Right. And talking about, regulation, and what about determining what this asset class really is? How do you classify it? We did hear in the ISA 25 that it's been classified as Bitcoin,
yes,
as a security.
Yes.
And we know we've had that, debate, in the US and everywhere. Is it a security? Is it not a security? What's the classification here? What's the right name?
So when you say currency, so if I use the fiat currency, for example, USD, that can be an asset. Remember when Nigerians went to buy, if they pay you Naira, you convert to USD and hold it, then after you dispose, when it appreciates. Then in that case, you're holding it as an asset. But remember also, I can pay for your services using Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. So in that case, what needs to happen is, if I pay you with regular fiat currency, which is like in Nigerian Naira, what exactly will be the tax implication of that? Then versus when I'm just holding it for appreciation. And so these are some of the little terms that need to be well detailed in the tax law for you to understand. So it can be an asset, it can also be a medium of exchange. It's an asset, it's a currency, depending on the way you use it. And so normally, I feel that when you want to define, and which always when I have a discussion with people, that you need to define the use cases. It's for payments, it's for asset appreciation, it's also for just exchange or gift, more or less. And so when you have those definitions, it helps you to determine, one, how do I tax this? Two, what are the different tax points? So for example, we have this thing that we call crypto mining. crypto mining is how you introduce Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies into the.
Because the
Yes.
miners will get taxed.
Exactly.
The way it's looking.
But one of the questions people have asked is, it costs a whole lot of money and power to get even one Bitcoin in there. But yes, I assign a value as at the point of introduction. But the question is, have I made the money? So if, for example, I've assigned $100,000 to a Bitcoin I introduce, and then it's just there, but I've not been able to dispose it for local currency, have I really made money? And so the question is, at what point is the profit realized? And once you've determined that, you're able to now tax it. But for me, it's once there's clear rules, it pushes voluntary compliance. And that's one of the things in Yellow Card we're pushing for, not just whim of the, let's just tax this.
So with the conversations you've been having with some of these governments, like you told me in East Africa, are you seeing positive responses?
Definitely.
From the government?
In Kenya, it was interesting, actually. So, I said they passed a law in 2023 to collect 3% on every transfer you did. And then, but because they thought about transfer, nobody thought about what exactly is a transfer. So sometimes transfer does not involve value addition. Because that was not clearly defined, that's one. Two, they realized they are taxing on the asset depletion. And so for the 2 years, nothing was generated. And most times people did not do anything. And so we had a meeting with them too. They have to invite us again because they needed to understand what exactly they do. How do we help KRA to maximize that revenue? Because, for example, you have someone in his house trading on Bitcoin. So while you can look at the exchange, how do the exchanges like Yellow Card help you to manage that and drive policy initiative that will help you grow your tax revenue? So we've done that, and I'm seeing several positive discussion. At least there's already changes. The Parliament have had 2 discussions with the National Assembly, or they call them Parliament there, and we are so sure, very, very sure, that before the end of June, when they release their Finance Act, there are going to be full changes on how that is taxed as well.
I guess at this point, it's just sit by and just watch.
Yes.
At this point, if you're a trader, if you're a miner, I'm sure most of them are concerned at this point what's going to happen, with my crypto gains and all of that. But we'll continue the conversation definitely going forward. It was great having this one with you. Sebastian Odema is the tax director at Yellow Card. They're helping us unpack how do you tax crypto, really? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ladi. It was a pleasure having you here. And thank you. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.